Indentured servants were men and women who would sign a contract to agree to work for 4 to 7 years in exchange for the trip to the colonies, clothing, shelter, and food. Indentured servants arrived in the decade after the settlement of Jamestown in 1607. The indentured servants were packed tightly on board ships to the colonies. Oftentimes they were unable to get fresh air, and many were lying in their own feces and were lying possibly next to a dead body that they were still chained to. This journey by sea took 8 to 12 weeks. The newly arrived servants had a written contract between them and a wealthy landowner as soon as they arrived in America. Adults usually served 4 to 7 years, while children worked for many more. When these newly indentured servants spent their first 2 weeks in America, they were greeted with many deadly diseases that were carried by insects. Indentured servants did many different types of labor. Most men worked in tobacco fields, while women worked in houses, cooking and cleaning. The worst job that you could get was making bread, because you had to haul the sacks of flour and you had to grind the ingredients by hand. This process was very labor-intensive. Indentured servants were treated badly, but they were not treated as poorly as slaves. There were laws put in place so that these servants would have their rights protected so they would not become slaves. If an indentured servant tried to run away, disobeyed their master, or got pregnant, their punishment would be getting their contract extended. After they completed their contract, they were free to start their new lives in the colonies. Some of the rewards given after they finished their work were land, a year's worth of corn, and new clothes. Some historians say that indentured servants were better off in the colonies than other immigrants because they did not have to pay the cost of starting a new life. Some former indentured servants became leaders in the colonies after receiving large rewards for their work. Most indentured servants were given enough to live a good life after their indentured servitude. Then, rich plantation owners began to use African slaves as more and more of their indentured servants demanded their payment after completing their contracts. African slaves were much more profitable because they did not have a contract, so there was no reward to be given to them.